Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the Confidence Architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Welcome back to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, where we inspire you, we motivate you, and boy, are we going to educate you today. We got a guy all the way from the other side of the world. I'm just kidding. But Stu Massengill, let me tell you, he is going to bring the wisdom. He's going to bring the knowledge. I tell you what, I love this guy. I was a guest on his podcast, and we just had that synergy. Stu, welcome to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, my brother. Let me give you a look at the crowd is going wild. Woo! What's going on, man?
Let's go, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me, man. I am absolutely honored to be here, and I am extremely excited for our conversation. So thank you so much, brother, and thank you for being you and bringing your energy.
Man, I'll tell you what, I know the epic person you are, brother, but introduce yourself to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, please.
Yes. So my name's Stu Massengill, and I am a speaker, a trainer for this guy, Tony Robbins, who people may have heard of. He's quite big in the personal development world. And then I also have my own company called Finding Direction, where we have the podcast that you were on, and we do a lot of coaching and speaking, more in the realm of figuring out what you want to do with your life, finding your purpose, and then living your purpose. And so those are really the two main things I do professionally. And then outside of that, I have an amazing relationship that I'm in. I'm an avid action sports outdoor person. So I always like to tell people I'm either trying to help someone live their full potential, or somewhere in the mountains kind of getting lost. So
why do you think so many people don't find their direction?
I think the reason a lot of people don't find their direction is I think there's a sense of over assessing what you want to do with your life, when the reality is you have to go out, try things. You have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to make the wrong turn to have the right turn unfold. And I think there's a sense of, over analysis paralysis, where a lot of the time we can sit there and you can go, man, I don't quite know what I want to do with my life. I think it's this, it might be that. But I think sometimes we get in this over analysis and then we don't actually try enough things to really get clarity. And sometimes when we do try something, we don't have the will to pull ourselves out of something that we're already too deep in, with air quotes. Right. And thinking that, man, I'm already been here for a year, 2 years. I've been doing this thing for 5 years, and it doesn't fulfill me. But man, I've been here for so long. So you know what? I'll just stick it out. Maybe things will figure it out eventually. And sometimes that doesn't happen. So I think
I love what you're saying. I love what you're saying there. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the part of the show where I tell you, get out your pen, get out your paper, because Stu's gonna drop some massive wisdom. Write it down. You retain over 50% of what you write down. So take notes. Get out your journal. Get out your pen. Come on. This guy's gonna drop some wisdom. I love what you said, right? I think this is the fact of exactly what you just said. Most people miss this truth. When you've invested, we'll just say a year or 2 years into a project, into a job, a career, whatever it is, right? You've invested that time. I have the belief that whatever you've learned in that, like me, I was in the automotive industry for 20 years. So when I started to become a speaker, who I am today, I didn't start from ground zero. I started from the wisdom that I brought. Right. So maybe, would you say that people need to change their perspective of, you're not starting back from zero again, you're bringing back that year of what you invested in that other project or whatever it may be.
Yeah. And it's like, you could spend, let's say, 20 years doing one thing. And as you move to something, that's 20 years of experience and things that apply to the next thing you do. For example, one of the things you and I spoke about when you came on the Finding Direction podcast is how at the end of every single month, you know your numbers, you look at those numbers, you know where your business is. And those are things you did in the automotive industry that are extremely helpful as a business owner. And you may not have had that skill and brought that skill to your speaking stuff if you did not learn it there. So I think we get caught up in the sense of, man, if I go to this thing, even if it's a different industry, if it's something that's like totally a different world, we get caught in this idea of, well, it's different and I'm not going to be knowledgeable enough. I'm not going to have the experience. But the reality is the things you've done in the past have prepared you for this next step of your life. And oftentimes it'll bring different things than other people have in that industry. So you actually can stand out in a better way because you look at it differently than a lot of the ways people look at it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. What's one of the main things you had to overcome in finding your direction? Because I see you, right? We see you now, you're successful, you're doing this, but I love the backstory of it. What's something that you had to overcome to really arrive to this destination point where you're at right now, Steve?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. I was just doing some like updating on my website, and I was, kind of recreating my about me on there and going through kind of my story. And it's interesting you asked that. And I think one of the biggest things that I think I had to come over to become the person that I am today was this false sense of identity that I had growing up, that I was like a shy, quiet, introverted, not very outspoken person. And that's kind of the way I grew up. I grew up being basically like in the background. I was a younger brother. And so for me, eventually you get into, the entrepreneurship space. It's like, well, if you're going to be an entrepreneur and I want to make an impact, I like speaking now, I was introduced to that. And it's like, well, if you're think of yourself as a shy, quiet person that's supposed to be in the background, yet you want to go make an impact on stages in front of people, like those things do not coexist together.
Yeah.
And so it was reshaping the identity and the belief I had of who I was, that although I grew up as a shy, quiet, introverted kid, that doesn't mean that's who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. Right. And that I can choose to be someone different that allows me to live in and grow into my full potential. And so I think that was the biggest thing I had to overcome, is realizing, okay, just because I grew up and I was taught and I believe this who I was growing up doesn't mean this is who I have to be for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, because so many people, I went through this. I'll be honest with you. I was stuck in my old identity. In my new book, I talk about it, how for me, it was that biker image, right? I rode Harley since 2003,
Yeah.
rode hard. I still got some heat rash from my, right? Heat, I don't know, it's burn, whatever you want to call it, but just from that motor, right? I'm riding for 15 years. You're going to have some. And I thought I was going to be young forever. I don't need no sunscreen. But I say that because when the hardest thing, right, Stu, for me, I could rock a suit, 9-piece suit, corporate training, and then I had this biker image, but I was stuck. I didn't have the image in between, and that's what I needed for who I am now. So literally getting rid of that old clothes, I got rid of some of it, but then you got to the shirts that cost $100, and I'm like, well, I don't want to get rid of it. But the thing is, God put this in my heart. That's your old identity. Get rid of it. And the vacuum law of prosperity says to welcome the new, you got to rid of the old. What are two things that you did that the audience can write down right now? What are two things that you did to reshape your identity? Because I love the way you said that, Stu.
Yeah, I think one big thing you can do to reshape your identity is, for a lot of the people, if you're listening to this, you may already have an idea or an inkling or a sense of what it is that you want to go do next in your life. And so I think really one of the most important things that people need to do is they need to own that inkling, own that whisper, own that thing that's inside of you. And the one quote you can write down if you're listening to this that you need to, I would say, live by if you want to shift and change your identity, is successful people do what's uncomfortable until it becomes comfortable, and that's why they're successful. So it's what is the thing inside of you that's saying, man, I want to speak, but I've always been behind a desk, or I want to, become a coach, but I've always, I've never been the face. Like, what is that thing that's calling to you that makes you pretty uncomfortable if you were to go do that? And my challenge to you listening to this is, if you want to shift your identity, if you want to change your identity and step into a new version of yourself, challenge yourself, I would say, over the next 30 days to live uncomfortably, to seek discomfort, to ask yourself, how can I step into this thing that I know is pulling me, but like, excuse my French, holy shit, it scares me. So that's one of the things I did in my life, is I asked myself, okay, like, I know I want to make an impact, but I am freakishly scared to get in front of a room and talk to people. Like, I don't even like talking to people one-on-one, let alone in front of a room. Like, I'm going to piss myself. But I knew that if I wanted to live my new identity, if I wanted to live in my purpose and my being, that I had to step into that discomfort. So that's one thing I would say anybody can do. Step into discomfort, seek that uncomfortability for 30 days. And the second thing I would say is, it comes to the people that you hang out with. It comes to the people that you're around, and doing an audit of that, right? Are the people that you're around encouraging you to step out of your comfort zone? Are they championing you? Or are they going, what do you like? No, you're like Stu, you're the quiet kid. Why are you trying to get in front of a room? That's like, You know what I mean? If you have people that are pulling you
Yeah.
back down to your old identity, that's going to make it that much harder to grow into your new identity. So whether that's just auditing who you're around with and maybe limiting some association, disassociating with some people, and maybe finding some new people that will push you. Maybe it's finding a mentor, maybe it's finding a coach, maybe it's joining some free communities that you could be part of. Maybe it's a Facebook group, but finding some way to be around people that can hold you to a standard and a higher version of who you want to be.
I love what you're saying. You know what came to mind when you said that? I thought of a movie where the kid, right? He was there and he's like, got home and, Mom, I need to lose weight. I'm overweight. And then the aunt's there, right? The aunt's there, and she's like, they're Italian. Oh, son, you're just big bone. Don't worry about it. You look amazing. But it's like we listen to our family sometimes, and then the kid in the movie just said, okay, right? He accepted it. And I think I love what you're saying, because for me, and I don't know, maybe you have some stories that you can share with us, but sometimes it's our family that we got to kind of distance ourselves from. It's not that they don't want us to do good, but in trying to protect us, they're doing more harm sometimes than good. And I was telling this client of mine, I said, look, what you do is you got to distance yourself from your cousin, and you got to distance yourself from the friends that ain't supporting you. And you got to think about this. Who you were in January is not who you are right now. So you outgrew some acquaintances, you outgrew some friends. What is some words of wisdom that you can share with us when someone's already, right? They know they got to let go of that relationship.
Yeah.
They know it, but they still go back. What's the wisdom you have for those people right now that are listening to this, that they know that they've outgrown that boyfriend, that girlfriend, or just whatever that friendship, and they're not right? They have a new dream they have, and it's not being supported.
I think the reality, and I think this is a really beautiful way to look at it, is sometimes, a lot of the time, too often of the time, people in life wait for the world and life to create leverage for themselves. So, for example, you have someone maybe that's overweight, and they go, man, I want to get in shape. I need to improve my health. And they say this for, years. Maybe some people even say it for decades. And then eventually they have a heart attack. They go to the doctor, and the doctor says, hey, if you don't get this together, like next time you're not going to make it through this. And then all of a sudden people go, wow, like I need to get in shape or I'm going to die. And that's life creating leverage for you. I think the secret to making that change in identity that you want to create in your life, or whether it's with association, is you need to find more leverage in your life, and you need to create the leverage in your life. So rather than saying, okay, I got this girlfriend and I know she's not, maybe it's bad, it's toxic, but like, man, it's like, there's some good parts. So I keep going back to it. Right now, you may not have leverage on yourself, but maybe a different way. And for everybody, it's different how you find leverage. But to give just an example, is maybe you've always wanted to be, let's say, a father your whole life. And that's something that's just, you've always thought about. You're like, man, I can't wait to have a kid and, just be a father. And so maybe the leverage that you start to ask yourself is the person that's toxic that you keep going back to, are they going to be the most amazing mother to your child? Are they going to make it so that you two can have the most unbelievable relationship, so that you can nurture this child as they grow up and let them grow up in a beautiful environment rather than harming them as they grow up, not physically, but, maybe psychologically. And so maybe that's leverage for you. Like, one thing I used to always share with people is one of the ways I created leverage for myself when I was going through that, like, I'm shy to like, I need to get on stage, is I was so scared to get in front of a room. I hated it. I even have a note card next to me that I keep. It's like the note card for the first.
For some reason, I don't believe you. You're telling me this, and I'm like, there's no way this guy was shy.
Yeah, I know. People don't believe it now because I've immersed myself in this world. But the way I created leverage for myself is I was afraid to get in front of a room. But what I was more afraid of is having my kids come up to me one day, and let's say we're not living well financially, and have them come up to me and be like, Dad, like, why can't we go do this thing? Or why are we struggling with the bills? Like, you had such an amazing opportunity in your life to not live this way, and you didn't take advantage of it. And now we're struggling. And like, I would picture that in my mind. And when I pictured that in my mind, it was like, I'm afraid to get in front of a room, but I'm more afraid to have that conversation with my future kids. I don't have kids now, but I would visualize and see that image. And it was like, I'm not going to let that happen for my kids. So I better get in front of the room. So to tie this all together, I think anyone that's struggling, whether it's getting to the next level of your life, whether it's disassociating from some people that maybe aren't healthy in your life, is you have to find a new way to create leverage for yourself that's going to allow you to pull yourself towards a greater future.
I love what we're talking about. So ladies and gentlemen, think about what Stu's saying. Right now, think about what do you have that's holding you to your old identity? Maybe you're a waiter or waitress and you got a uniform that you haven't thrown away. Maybe you're like me, you have that race car shirt and clothes that you don't want to get rid of. For me, it was Harley. Throw it away. The vacuum law of prosperity says, right, until you create space for the new, it's not going to come. And that's what Stu's saying. And then think about right now, what associations, who's in your playground that you need to get rid of? And not that you're better than them, right? It's not that you're better.
Right.
You're going down a different path, right? So you're going down a different path. And maybe you just outgrown some people. Maybe they're supportive of you, right? If you don't make room for the new, there's never going to be the new. And I think that for me, it was this dude that it was hard to let go of those people because I wanted everybody to love Daniel and I wanted to love everybody. But even as a believer in Christ, it's like, dude, like God says, there's other people that I need you to help. So ladies and gentlemen, write down right now, out of the people I hang out with the most, the 5 people you hang out the most, who's the one person that doesn't really support me? That I don't want to be drinking anymore in clubs, but I'm still going to these clubs, or whatever you're doing that doesn't serve you anymore. Who's that one association? And it may be your best cousin. Maybe your cousin is toxic, like we were talking about. Not that they're bad people, they just don't know any better, and your heart isn't there anymore. You gotta make room for the new people in your life. So let me ask you this. When it comes to a family member, how does somebody maybe respond to that? Because that's one thing that I hear all the time. Well, it's family, I see them. How does somebody approach the fact of, okay, I know I don't need to be hanging out with my cousin anymore, but how do they distance themselves from maybe a relationship like that when it's family, right? Maybe for a friend, it's easier because guess what? I can move this way, and friends are for a season time, but sometimes it's family, it's a cousin that you really love. How does somebody make the decision, or how do you disassociate yourself from that person to make room for them?
Yeah, I think the harsh reality is that neither option's easy. Like, it would be great if we could say, man, it's easy to, like, your family that you've grown up with maybe for 10, 20, 30, 40 years to just like all of a sudden not have them be as big a part of your life. Like, I wish I could say to, you right now that, man, it's so easy to do, but it's going to be uncomfortable either way. And so the reality is you have to pick your discomfort. You have to pick your heart, right? Like they often say, life's going to be hard. You got to pick your heart, right? So it's like, is the hard you want, being around your cousin that puts you down, maybe that doesn't talk well, that's not living in an abundant life, that's living more in a scarce mindset? Is that the hard that you want, is being around that and having that toxicity? Or is the hard you want disassociating from that and then pursuing a life that you really want, which also is going to have its hard pieces, right? It's like either way, it's going to be difficult, but you need to pick which difficult do you want. And I think that's unfortunately the harsh reality. And you can even have a conversation with them, if we want to put it in simple terms and say, hey, these are some of the things I really want to achieve in my life. And I feel, and the biggest thing when you come to a conversation with them, and I would say maybe this is the biggest thing anyone takes from this, if they need to have a conversation with someone, is don't come into it saying you always do this, you always do that. Come into it saying, hey, I want to do these things with my life, and I feel, and start off with that. What I'm noticing, what I'm feeling is that when I'm around you, like, I just feel bad. What I'm feeling is, and come from it from that sense of like what's happening internally to you, rather than saying and putting the blame on them. I think that's I think the big piece when it comes to having that conversation.
That's great wisdom, though. I love what you said. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. You got to pick your heart. I get a lot of pushback when I talk about the millionaire mind, right? They push back, and I say, well, is it harder to be broke or is it harder to make money? Daniel, it's hard to make money, yeah, but is it harder to worry about how am I going to make it? Either way, it's hard. Either way, it sucks. It sucks being broke. It sucks not having enough money to go and do the things you want to do. So what Stu is saying is this: either way, it's going to be hard to let go of that relationship. It's going to be hard if you never grow. And the last thing what Stu is saying is you don't want to live with that regret. Leverage the future you. Let me ask you this, dude.
Yeah.
What?
Can I throw one quick thing in there as well?
Yeah, for sure, dude.
So I think and this is something we teach a lot in, within our finding direction world, is for anyone that is wanting to make that shift to a new version of yourself, get to that next level. One of the things we teach is there's 3 pieces, and I think it's very applicable to anybody listening to this, and you can do it daily. And the 3 pieces are, number 1, auditing, right? So number 1, you got to figure out which version of yourself are you showing up as today, right? So you got to take a perspective as you start off the day. Who are you coming from? Then second A stands for act. So you got to act from that version of yourself. And then finally, the 3rd piece is you have to adapt, right? So you got to figure out, okay, what's working as I step into this new version, what's not working, and how can I adapt that? But I think as you go throughout your day and you ask yourself, okay, number 1, let me audit. Let me look at which version of myself am I showing up in today. Then number 2, let me act from that person. And then let me adapt so I can continuously grow into the version that I want to be. And I think those are 3 really simple things people can look at every day as you want to step into that new version of yourself.
Wow. Are you talking to me this morning, bro?
Let's go, my guy.
I'm telling you, man, this morning, everything that could go wrong went wrong. So I found myself there. We had a photo shoot, we had a video shoot, and 8:30 was the time. 8:40, nobody showed up. 8:45, nobody showed up. 8:50, I'm like, hey, I'm here. And the old Daniel wanted, right? Danny Gomez, not Daniel, Danny, that the old guy wanted to come up, and he was it was already starting to bubble. Call him, and they're like, oh no, he's on his way. And I'm like, okay, calm. 9 o'clock came around, nothing. Man, now I was already, you could see the steam coming, but I had to do an audit.
Yeah.
Is that the way I want to react? And then are my actions going to represent that? So I really had to say, you know what? I've learned. I'm not going to answer the phone call. I don't want to say something that. So as I was coming home, I was like, okay, got to adapt. And I was, right, you're still cooling down. And I'm being honest, right? Because people need to hear this.
Yeah.
But I said, well, the videographer called me, goes, hey, I'm sorry. Forgive me, right? He texted me, and he was being sincere. I said, you know what? Let me call you back because I'm still kind of hot. Let me run this errand. So I go, and then next thing you know, the idea came, why don't I just shoot some footage in my backyard, right? I have a nice pool. I said, you know what? Just meet me at my house. At least we can salvage the day. But I chose to do, like you're saying, an audit. I didn't allow the old person to come up, the old Daniel.
Yeah.
I didn't have I wanted to respond to the actions of who I am, right? Because if I'm walking the walk, right? Everybody talks the talk, but you got to walk the walk.
Amen.
If I'm going to blow up on this guy and start cursing him out, well, then I'm no better than anybody else. So I caught my actions. I said, look, let me just call you back, because I caught myself, right? I caught myself wanting to be like, forget him. That's not what I said.
Yeah.
I said another F word. I'm just being real, right? Because we got to be real. And then I said, well, let me adapt. What can we do? I said, well, I can mess up the whole day. The guy was being sincere. He was calling me. I said, look, just meet me at my house. And that's when I sent you that message. And it just worked out perfectly. He came over, we shot it, boom. And he goes, well, you have a beautiful house. Why do you want to shoot? I said, well, it is what it is. He goes, you know what, Daniel, not to cover for me, but I think we were meant to shoot some footage in your house because you have a beautiful house. And I said, you know what, I kind of feel the same way. So, but I had to be open to adapting, to be impromptu.
Right.
What is the key to adapting?
I think the key to adapting is having clear eyes on your life from a high level. So it's understanding where is it that you're trying to go in your life? What's the vision that you have for your life? And it's asking yourself at the end of your day, okay, were the actions that I took from today in alignment with the actions that are going to get me to the vision that I want? Or, for example, maybe if we look the other way, maybe you had a conversation with him that was Danny, not Daniel. And it was hey, this, that, the other, don't come. You like whatever the conversation could have been from Danny. Then at the end of the day, you look at that and go, okay, what can I do tomorrow so that I show up as Daniel, not Danny? Right. So it's asking yourself at the end of the day, like doing a check-in with yourself. And you don't have to do it daily. You could do it weekly or monthly, but it's doing a check-in regularly on what are the actions you're taking in your life, and are they in alignment with the version that you want to grow into? Because the truth is the majority of people, unfortunately, only do an audit once a year. They only adapt once a year. Yeah. And it's New Year's, right? They look and they go, okay, what happened this last year? I had this health goal and I didn't really get there. Okay. So, let me adapt this next year. and do these other things. And they don't check in for another year. So the secret really to adapting is doing it more often. It's saying, I'm not going to adapt once a year. I'm not going to adapt once a month. I'm not going to adapt even once a week. Like, let's look at this daily. And how can I continue to adapt daily? And if you do that, now you took what one person did in a year and you did it 365 times, and you're going to be much more on track to get to where you want to be.
You know, I love what we're talking about, because just I'm being transparent, ladies and gentlemen, right? I mean, I always say, you got to be real, right? I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
But there was a part of me that wanted to be right? Like, I'm right. They were late. I'm right. Like, forget them, right? I was just there. And even though, so I had to catch my thoughts. And I said, yeah, Danny, you're going to be right, but you're going to lose a whole day. You got your trainer here 30 minutes early to work out. You got dressed. You drove in traffic. So you want to be right and just throw away the opportunity maybe that they'll come to your house. Why do people want to be right all the time? Think about that, right? I mean, I wanted to be right, even though if I would have been right. You know what? Forget it. Let's cancel it. But in trying to be right, sometimes you cost yourself opportunities.
Yeah.
Would you say that?
Yeah, 100%. Right. I mean, we want to be right. We want to be certain of the things that we're doing in our life. But I think, again, if we want to adapt and audit our actions, we got to ask ourselves, what's more important? Do I want to be right, or do I want to be in alignment with this version of myself that I'm trying to grow into? And sometimes that allows us to have to sit back and say, okay, you know, hey, what other lens can I look at this through? Right? What else could this mean?
Yeah, I love that. Tell us a time in your life where you lost your confidence, and what did you learn about yourself when you got it back?
Good question. One time when I lost my confidence and then I got it back.
And what did you learn about yourself?
And what did I learn about myself? A moment when I lost my confidence. So I think, not to be repetitive, but I think going back to similar to the first story that I had, I didn't grow up as a confident person. So I wasn't the person that was like, oh, I'm like the shit. And like, I was like not confident growing up. And so for me, when I started to go into doing speaking more and like really putting myself out there, I had to realize, and I think one of the biggest things to grow my confidence, and I now do this much more consciously, is that naturally where our brain goes, and this is where my brain grows, I was getting into speaking, and as I've gone through other parts of my life, naturally where our brain goes is we want to look for what's wrong, what didn't work, and what's wrong ultimately. And that's where our brain goes. So for example, when I was doing some of the initial speaking that I was doing, I would have, let's say, 15 people show up for one of my speeches, and 15 people would show up. But what I would focus on is one part of the speech didn't actually go the way that I wanted. And so I would leave that day and go throughout the rest of my day, and oftentimes carry it through the rest of my week, and just go, man, like I did that speech and yeah, 15 people showed up, but like it could have been 100 people, or it should have been 100 people, or, you know, that one piece of the speech, like I didn't really do it well. And that would drag my confidence down into the next day. And it wouldn't help me create momentum in the forward direction of my life, but it would actually pull me backwards. So what I began to do, and I think this is a really simple and extremely powerful practice anyone can listen to this can do to build your confidence, and it's what I did as I started getting in the speaking business and world, is I started to focus on, at the end of every single day, what are 3 wins that I can capture today? What are 3 things that I could be so proud of, so pumped, and so excited about that I could capture today and take into my next day? Because the reality is success breeds success and failure can't breed success. But too many of us are carrying around failure or lack of confidence, trying to take that into confidence, when the reality is you got to find small little bits where you can capture and create confidence. And that's how you grow that confidence. So for example, at the end of the day, rather than saying, man, that part of the speech didn't go well, or I could have had 100 people and I only had 15, my win would be, man, I had 15 people that I got to do a speech for today. And not only did I have 15 people, after I had some really cool conversations with some of them, and those would be 2 of my wins. And then another win would be, man, today I went to the grocery store and I got my groceries, right? Like it would be nothing even to do with business sometimes, but it was like, how can I just, when my head hits the pillow at the end of the night, say, man, these are 3 things that I want today. And they could be huge things. They could be tiny things, but it's training yourself to find wins in your life. And that's going to help you grow your confidence. That's going to help you grow your momentum. And that's really, honestly, one of the simple practices I did back then. And I honestly still do it a lot of the time today. If I'm in like a funk, I'll just be like, all right, back to the basics. What are 3 wins I had today?
So what did you learn about yourself?
Use that. Huh?
What did you learn about yourself?
What did I learn about myself? That what you focus on dictates what your life looks like. And if you're always focused, and if I was always focusing on what was going wrong, then my life kind of just was like crappy, because I was always focused on what was going wrong. I was always focused on what wasn't working. I was always
That's a boom moment, baby. Boom, baby. Listen to what he just said, ladies and gentlemen. The crap you focus on, you attract. The crap you focus on, you attract. What are you focusing on? Maybe you're not getting the results right now in your life and your business because you're focusing on the wrong thing. Listen to what Stu just said. He just said right now, when he focused on the bad, more bad came his way. When he focused on the wins, more wins came his way. It's funny you say this, because it's something that I really, not that I'm not grateful for the life that God's given me, but I said, something that I started telling myself was, I am choosing to be grateful for something. I am choosing to focus on things to be grateful for today. I'm intentionally waking up every day saying, I am choosing to focus on things to be grateful for today. And since I've done that, like today, right? I got dressed, might as well just capture some videos, capture some optics.
Yeah.
And that's what got me through. I love that. So right now, maybe somebody's going through life right now, Stu, and they're focusing on negative. We'll just say, how does somebody shift their focus?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing before I get to that, that's also, I think, super important to grow awareness around as well, is what you focus on dictates where you live emotionally every single day. So not only if you're focusing on what's going wrong, are you attracting more of what's wrong into your life, but if you're focusing on what's wrong, you're not living in an emotionally healthy place probably. You're not feeling good about yourself. You're not feeling confident. You're not feeling excited. You're not like, you're probably feeling like you're not good enough, right? And some of those things. But if you're focusing on what's going right, it changes the way you feel emotionally, and that changes so many things in your life. Now, if you focus on what's right, you start to feel like, man, I actually feel like good about myself. I did that thing and I did it well. I start to feel more confident. I start to love myself more. I start to have more confidence, more self-love. And it's like that dribbles into every other aspect of your life. So I think that's a huge thing to understand is, you're going to attract more of whatever you focus on, but it's also going to dictate the way that you feel daily. And where you live and where you feel daily is a huge portion of, like, we only have the present moment. So if you're always focusing on what's wrong and feeling like crap, your life is going to be crap. If you're focusing on what's going right, not only are you going to bring more of what's right and what's good into your life, but you're going to feel better more often. And that sprinkles in everything. So to answer your question, how do people start to shift from negative focus to positive focus? One way, and you mentioned it earlier, I think it's a beautiful way to do it, is start off with some gratitude. Really, really simple piece. I wake up every single morning and write down 10 things I'm grateful for. And not just like write them down, but I think a really important piece here is allow yourself to really feel and embody these things. Don't just write a list, go, oh, I'm grateful that I have a home. I'm grateful that I'm breathing. I'm grateful because this thing went well in business. Like, actually sit there and feel it and let it charge you. And when you start to practice gratitude every day, and it's one of the simplest things and everybody talks about it, but there's a reason everybody talks about it, right? Is because it's massively powerful. So I think really simple way you can start to change it.
Yes,
Practice some
I love what you're saying though, right? Everybody talks about it. And even, I mean, right, I'm just being real. Even though everybody talks about it, myself being in this personal growth development industry, it's one thing to talk about it, but to really apply it and be intentional, I can honestly tell you that people that I know that they don't practice it. I mean, I've seen it, right? I've seen it at these, like, at conferences or whatever masterminds we go to, and I mean, I'm guilty of this sometimes too, right? We get comfortable, we stop doing the things that got us to that next level of success. And I agree with you, right? You got to embody it and really be intentional on being grateful every day. And I'm so glad that I came across that affirmation, right? I am choosing to focus on things to be grateful for today, because it has to be done every day. And you're 100% right still on that. I love what you're saying, man.
Yeah. And I think one other thing you can do as well And it's not as much like a daily practice, but it's making the decision that you're not willing to live in a negative world anymore. Like when you make the decision to say, you know what, this has been rough and things have not been good. And like, I don't need to know the how, but like, I am deciding that I'm going to be happier. Like I'm going to live in a better state. I'm going to live in a more positive world, like that I create for myself. Like when you make that decision, things will start to happen in your life, right? Yeah. Gratitude's a practical piece you can do, but it's making the decision that like, you deserve to live a life that you love. You deserve to live a life where you wake up excited. You deserve to live a life that fills your soul, that charges you up. And maybe you've grown up in an environment where you weren't around people that believe that as well. And if that's the case for you, listen to what Daniel and I are sharing with you right now and really like take in this moment, embrace this, that you are so deserving of a life that you love. You're so deserving of a life that excites you. You're so deserving of a life where you actually get to go through your life and your day happy. And when you make the decision that you deserve that and you start to own that, things will just flow into your life differently.
Man, I love what you're saying. Let me ask you this. What's a scripture or a quote that you rely on when things get tough? What is a scripture or quote that Stu relies on when those days just are challenging and you're getting punched in the gut?
A quote that I rely on. One of the quotes I rely on, it's not quite as practical to this situation, but is the successful people do what's uncomfortable until it becomes comfortable. That's why they're successful. A recent one that I've come across, and it was from someone I had on my podcast, and they shared this, and I was like, damn, that's good. So this is the one I'm going to give today. Because I wouldn't say there's like one I consistently live by, but this one that recently I learned, and I was like, damn, that's good, is people like me do things like this. And it's moments where I'm doing something and pushing myself, and it's like the old identity starts to like try to creep back in. It's like, no, you're the shy, quiet, like kid that's like, you know, doesn't want to be in the spotlight. And I'm trying to get to that next level, and it's uncomfortable. The mantra is people like me do things like this. Like,
yes,
people like me do things like this, you know? And it's like, okay, like, yeah, this identity of this next version of myself, like, yeah, people like me do things like that. And it just allows me to step into that space of, I guess, uncertainty.
No, I love it. I love it. How do we get a hold of you, man? Somebody wants to connect with you. They're listening to this episode and I want to connect with Stu. Where can they find you, my brother?
Yeah, I would say honestly, best place, come hang out with us on our podcast. It's called Finding Direction. And so obviously we got your episode there. So highly encouraged. It was a fire, unbelievable episode. So absolutely go listen to that one. And I would say come hang out with us there. We're on Spotify, iTunes, all the platforms. And then if anyone wants to connect personally, you can find me on social media. It's just Stu Massengill, StuMassengIll. And so if anybody wants to connect there, has questions, anything I can do to support any of you that are listening, and if you have anything that I can do to support you, help you in your journey, or if you have any questions, truly, I believe that I was put on this earth to help people. And so if I can be of assistance to any of you, please do, reach out.
I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have his information on our show notes. So we'll have it here on the episode. And, this was a great episode because I think it really helped me to reflect that when things get tough, ladies and gentlemen, are you going to retract back to the old you? Are you going to retract back to the old identity? I really had a choice this morning. I really had a choice to go back to the old Danny Gomez. And he almost came out. Believe me, he was the horns were almost coming out. But I really, now that I'm thinking about it, it was a big win because I didn't allow that to happen. I didn't allow it to mess up my morning. I didn't allow it. I didn't get home and take out the frustration on my wife. I didn't take it out on the bank teller. I just said, no, like, I'm not going to allow it. And by giving myself, sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, when these moments rise up of tension, of stress, you got to take a step back, and it's okay not to answer the phone. It's okay to be by yourself for 5 minutes. And then realize, what actions am I going to take? Am I right at that pivotal point? Are you going to revert back to who you were? Are you going to take the actions to
give yourself an audit? Yeah.
And it happens. And then guess what? You just adapt. And that's one of my big takeaways. So this was a powerful episode. So thank you for being an amazing guest, my brother. What's the last word of wisdom before we end this amazing episode, Stu? Give us the last word of wisdom, my brother.
The last word of wisdom is, I want to give everybody a challenge as you leave, and it's a really simple challenge. And I know we've been talking a lot about today, like, you know, how do you live in a more energy rich place? Because that sprinkles into helping you the next version of yourself. It helps you live in a better place daily. So my challenge is extremely simple, and it's a way that you can bring more goodness and good energy into your life. And the challenge is extremely simple. It's that next time you go to the grocery store, as you're checking out, give the checkout clerk a compliment or ask them how their day is, and like genuinely be interested. And if you give them a compliment, genuinely give them an actual compliment, because one of the best ways to grow where you live emotionally is to help other people live in a better place emotionally. If you want to be happier, help someone else be happier, and you're going to feel happier. If you want someone else to feel more confident, help them feel more confident, and it's going to rub off on you. So my challenge to anyone listening to this, my last word would be, go help someone else smile, and you're going to start to smile more.
Woo! Boom, baby. I love it. I love it. I love it. Man, that's a wrap for this week's episode. Thank you so much, Stu, for being here with us. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're stuck in life, if you're stuck in business, go to danielgomezglobal.com and do an entrepreneur assessment there. And better yet, go to our new website, themakingsofamillionairemind.com, and get our course, The Makings of a Millionaire Mind course. Stop arguing with your wife about money. Stop arguing with your husband about money. And stop having that financial stress. Our course is impacting hundreds and hundreds of people already. I'll tell you what, it's been phenomenal. I want you to stop living paycheck to paycheck. And not only that, think about the blessing you can be to the people around you. So go to the Makings of a Millionaire Mind course. Go to the makingsofamillionairemind.com. Get our course. And you know what? Get a book, get a gift for somebody. We want to autograph a book. Until next week, we'll see you here on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. Thank you, Stu, once again. Woo woo!
This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to danielgomezinspires.com and get your copy today. That's danielgomezinspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.